I always knew something about me didn't fit, not in the family photos where I stood 2 shades darker than my parents, not in the way my mom tightened her jaw when I asked where I was born, and definitely not in the dreams, the ones I couldn't explain, Spanish lullabies, a woman with wild curls, a blue house with a yellow door, dreams that felt more like memories. But I didn't question much. I was a kid. Kids believe what they're told, and I was told I was Haley Marie Carter, born in Tampa, raised in Miami, only child of Linda and Patrick Carter, devout churchgoers, PTA presidents, homeowners, the kind of couple people say could never do something bad, the dangerous kind. It started on my 16th birthday. I woke up to balloons, a cake, and a wrapped box on the table. Inside the box, a bracelet, silver, elegant. But that wasn't the gift that changed my life. That came a few hours later, when my best friend, Eva, posted an Instagram story of me blowing out the candles. The caption said, "Happy, sweet 16, Haley." An hour later, someone messaged her, "That girl's name isn't Haley. I swear she was kidnapped years ago in Colombia. Her name is Lucia." Eva showed me the message, laughing at first, but my skin turned to ice, because Lucia, that name triggered something sharp in my chest, something buried. I tried to ignore it. I laughed it off, too. Said someone must be trolling. But when I looked in the mirror that night, I didn't see Haley anymore. I saw a question mark, and suddenly, I couldn't stop asking things I had never dared to ask before. I asked Linda, my mom, to see my birth certificate. She hesitated, then handed me a folded, laminated copy. Something felt off. The edges were too clean. The font, strange. It was a certificate, yes, but it looked like something out of a template, so I took a photo and reverse searched the document layout online. Result: fake birth certificate template, Florida version. That's when the panic began to bloom. I asked Patrick about hospital photos. "We didn't take any," he said too quickly. "It was a complicated birth. Weird. We had photos for every other milestone, my first bath, my first tooth, Halloween in a bumblebee costume. But not the moment I entered the world. Something was wrong." I dug deeper. Then the attic, I found a dusty box labeled XMAS lights. Inside, tangled wires, and something wedged beneath, a VHS tape. The label peeled off, but a small tag read, 2007 Cartagena. Cartagena. That's not Florida. I borrowed a neighbor's old player and watched it that night. The footage was shaky. Street vendors, salsa music. Then the camera zoomed in on a girl, maybe 5 or 6, hair in a ponytail, dressed in pink. She looked straight at the lens. It was me, but not the version of me I'd seen in our family albums. This girl was barefoot, dancing with other kids, laughing in Spanish. Behind her, a woman appeared, same curls from my dreams, same voice from the lullabies. She called out, "Lucia." Then I froze. That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, asking questions I didn't know how to answer. Who were Linda and Patrick? Who was the woman on the tape? Why couldn't I remember anything before I turned 6? But deep down, I think I already knew. I just didn't want to believe it. The call that changed everything. The next morning, I did something I never imagined doing. I called the number at the bottom of a missing persons poster. I found online that the poster was old, faded, but the little girl on it was me, down to the dimple on my left cheek. It said, "Missing, Lucia Camila Alvarez, last seen, Cartagena, Colombia, -2009, age at disappearance, 6 reported by Marcela Alvarez." Mother, my voice shook as I dialed. A woman answered. "I didn't say anything." She said, "Hola, Lucia. It is too." And just like that, everything shattered. Asterisk, I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake, eyes wide in the dark, clutching the teddy bear to my chest like a shield. My heart raced, pounding louder than the creaks of the old house. The photo, the name, Valentina. It echoed in my head, over and over, like a bell that wouldn't stop ringing. I wasn't Emily. I had never been Emily. By morning, Mama D acted like nothing had happened. She hummed as she made toast, kissed my forehead, and handed me a glass of orange juice, like she hadn't just locked me in my room, or whispered about losing control. But I noticed something different. Her eyes were puffy. She didn't look me in the face. She avoided my questions and kept glancing at the phone. Something was coming. She knew it. And now, so did I that day. I waited until she went outside, To feed the stray cats behind the house, her one indulgence, one moment of vulnerability. I ran to the hallway. The one door that had always been locked across from my room was ajar. I didn't hesitate. Inside was a dusty office, filing cabinets, a broken lamp, boxers piled up in corners. It smelled like old paper and mold. I opened the first drawer. Empty. The second, more files. Medical records, bills, receipts, all under the name Dolores Monroe. So that's her real name, I thought, not Mama D. And then, tucked behind a stack of folders, I found a notebook, spiral-bound, worn, pages filled with frantic handwriting. The first entry stopped my breath. Her name was Valentina Ortiz when I took her. She was 6. Mall of the Americas. It was too easy. I dropped the book. My hands were shaking. Another line. I told them she died in the fire, but I saw her hiding behind the carousel. The girl had no idea. Tears flooded my face before I even realized I was crying. I read more. She wrote about how she watched us, me and my parents, for weeks before acting. How she studied our routines. She planned it all. And the worst part, they searched for her for years, but I changed her name, changed her hair, gave her a new story. She forgot them. That's how love works. You erase the old with something stronger. She thought I loved her. I heard the front door slam. She was back. I shoved the notebook under my shirt and tiptoed back to my room, locked the door from the inside. I sat on the floor, sobbing silently into my bear. I was stolen. My life, stolen. My memories, rewritten. Mama D wasn't my mother. She was my kidnapper that night. I did the unthinkable. I waited until she fell asleep. Her bedroom door always creaked when it opened, so I knew I had only one shot. Barefoot, I sneaked down the hall and grabbed the cordless phone from the kitchen. My fingers trembled as I dialed the only number I could remember from my past, one I'd whispered to myself for years, in dreams I thought were fantasy. 305-992-4103. It rang, once, twice, then a woman's voice answered, hoarse and cautious. Hello. I didn't know what to say. I hadn't heard that voice in 3 years, but my heart knew it instantly. I whispered, Is this Mrs. Ortiz? Silence, then a sob, then screaming, and then Valentina. Valentina, is that you? The voice on the other end cracked like dry earth in a drought. I froze. I couldn't answer. It felt like speaking would shatter the fragile reality I had just started to remember. Baby, please, speak to me. Her voice was trembling, shaky, raw with hope and fear, and years of buried pain. I opened my mouth, but only a broken whisper came out. I think you're my real mom. I heard the phone hit the floor. Someone screamed in the background. A man, maybe, or another woman. Then sobs, endless sobs. That night changed everything. I didn't tell her where I was. I was too scared. But I told her my name was Emily now. That I lived with a woman named Dee. I told her about the teddy bear, the locked doors, the notebook I heard. Something snap inside her with each word. I knew it, she whispered. All these years, I felt it in my bones. I knew you were alive. She told me her name was Luciana Ortiz, that I was born in Puerto Rico, that my favorite color used to be yellow, that I had a birthmark behind my right ear. I ran to the mirror. It was there for 3 years. I had called another woman mom. I had kissed her goodnight. I had trusted her. Now, I didn't know who I was anymore. Luciana promised she would come for me, that I had a brother, Daniel, who never stopped looking, that my real dad had died from grief a year after I disappeared. That part broke me. He never forgave himself, she said. He went to that mall every week hoping, just hoping. The next few days were a blur. I kept pretending, kept calling her Mama D, kept hugging her, but now every touch made my skin crawl. I knew her truth, and I knew mine. I hid the notebook under a floorboard in my room. I waited. I listened. And then, I found the camera, hidden behind the smoke detector, pointed straight at my bed. I wanted to scream, to rip it out of the ceiling, but I did single quotes T. Instead, I smiled into it, played her game. If she was watching, I wanted her to feel safe, because I had a plan. 2 nights later, I slipped another note through the mail slot. Inside, I had written one sentence. The girl you're looking for is still alive. No name, no return address. But I knew Luciana would know. I also knew Mama D went to sleep heavy on wine every Thursday. And Thursday was coming. When the night came, I waited for the snores. Then, I crept into her room. The bottle of rose still on the nightstand, her face twisted in dreams I hoped were haunted by guilt. I reached under her bed and pulled out the box. It was metal, locked, but she'd once told me the code was her lucky number. I tried 0911, didn't work. Then 0605, my fake birthday. Still nothing. I closed my eyes, thought of the photo again, the carousel. The moment she saw me. 11 to 3, it clicked. Inside were IDs, social security cards, passports. Mine, hers, dozens of others. Fake names, fake lives, but there was one that stopped my breath. A folded envelope marked, "In case I get caught." Inside, a confession, written in her shaky hand. Addressed to whom it may concern. I didn't mean to fall in love with her, but I did, and I couldn't give her back. I just couldn't. My skin crawled. This woman had stolen me, and convinced herself it was out of love. The next morning, I left the envelope where it was, but I took the photo of me as a baby. I needed to remember who I really was. I slipped it under my pillow, and for the first time in years, I slept peacefully, because I knew Luciana was coming. I didn't know how, but I knew no force on earth was going to keep my real mother from me now. It happened on a Tuesday. The sun was barely up, and the sky over Miami was a soft pink wind. The knock came firm, loud, and final. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my cereal untouched, eyes locked on the door. I knew. Somehow, I just knew. Mama D, or Dolores, as I had now trained myself to think of her, looked up from her coffee, frowning. Nobody knocked at our door. Nobody even knew we were here. She stood, slow and cautious, smoothing her robe, and when she opened it, 3 officers, 2 men in uniform, 1 woman in plain clothes with a badge on her hip and fire in her eyes. "Dolores Monroe," she said. Dolores froze. "Yes, we have a warrant to search the premises, and a court order regarding the custody of a minor." "Step aside, ma'am." Everything went still. I held my breath. Dolores turned pale, like someone had drained the blood from her body. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I don't understand. Where is the child?" The female officer interrupted. "Valentina Occhis." That name. My name. I stood up from the table slowly, clutching the photograph of my parents to my chest. My legs were trembling, but I walked forward, and for the first time in 3 years, I said it out loud. "I'm Valentina." I remember now. Dolores dropped to her knees. No, 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 no. No, she's confused. She's lying. She doesn't know what she's saying. The officers were already moving, stepping past her, shielding me behind them. The woman officer knelt beside me, gently placing her hand on my shoulder. "You're safe now," she whispered. "We're taking you home. Home. That word shattered something inside me. I'd forgotten what it meant, but now, I felt it. And for the first time in years, I let myself cry. They took Dolores out in handcuffs. Her screams echoed through the walls. "She's my daughter. I raised her. She loves me." But no one listened. Not anymore. From the back seat of the patrol car, I watched her face twist behind the window as they drove her away. It was over. Almost. They took me to the station first. There were cameras, reporters, a translator. I was tired, overwhelmed, dazed, and terrified. But then, she walked in. Luciana. She looked older than in the photograph. Her hair was streaked with gray. Her eyes were red from years of crying, but I recognized her instantly. And when she fell to her knees and wrapped her arms around me, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long, long time. Untruth. "Mi amor, mi niña, mi Valentina." She smelled like lavender and sea salt and hope. She didn't let me go for 10 full minutes, and when she finally did, she cupped my face and said, "I knew you'd come back to me." They ran DNA tests, of course. They interviewed me, evaluated my mental state. I had to tell my story again and again, about the fake name, the locked rooms, the cameras, the threats masked as love, about the woman who told me I was hers, and meant it. The therapist said I had trauma bottoming, that my mind had created emotional safety inside captivity. But I didn't need labels. I just needed time. Luciana brought me back to Puerto Rico. My real room was still there. My yellow dresses, my favorite stuffed elephant. Daniel, my brother, had grown taller, quieter, but the second we met, he held me like he'd been waiting every day for this moment. He whispered in my ear, I never stopped looking. That night, I sat on my bed, staring out the window. There were stars in the sky, so many more than I ever saw through the locked shutters in Miami. I reached under my pillow and pulled out the photo. This time, I didn't cry. I smiled, because I remembered who I was, and who I was in single quotes T, and for the first time in 3 years, I wasn't afraid to sleep. The trial began 6 months after I returned home. Dolores Monroe, the woman I once called Mama D, was charged with kidnapping, identity fraud, unlawful imprisonment, and psychological abuse of a minor. The courtroom was packed with journalists. Cameras buzzed outside the courthouse. Everyone wanted to see the monster who'd stolen a child and convinced her she was loved. But when I looked at Dolores on the witness stand, she didn't look like a monster. She looked small, hollow, like a person who had spent so long pretending she'd forgotten what was real. "I know what I did was wrong," she said, voice shaking. "But I loved her. I gave her everything. She was my world." Some people cried. Others scoffed. I sat silently, fingers laced in my lap. Luciana beside me holding my hand like a lifeline. Love. That word twisted like glass in my stomach, because a part of me, a part I hated, remembered how it felt to be hugged by her, to be told I mattered, to be kissed goodnight, even if everything was a lie. The jury found her guilty on all counts. She was sentenced to 24 years in federal prison, with no chance of parole for at least 18. I should have felt relief. I should have felt triumph. But what I felt was empty. Not because she didn't deserve it, but because she had taken something from me that couldn't be returned. Time. A week after the verdict, a letter arrived in the mail. No return address, just my name. In handwriting I would have recognized anywhere. Valentina. My fingers trembled as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, lined, worn, and written in her messy, frantic style. "I know you hate me. You should. I deserve that, but I want you to know the truth. I didn't choose you out of cruelty. I saw a child alone for 5 seconds, and in those 5 seconds, something snapped inside me. I wasn't trying to steal your life. I was trying to fix my own. There was more. Before you, I had a daughter. Her name was Leona. She died at 6, hit by a drunk driver. I never forgave the world for taking her. When I saw you, Valentina, you smiled like she did. I lost my mind. I replaced her with you. I told myself it was fate, that I was rescuing you. But I was only rescuing myself. I dropped the letter. I couldn't breathe. All the locked doors, the rules, the obsessive affection. She hadn't just taken me. She'd tried to recreate someone else through me. I wasn't her daughter. I was her ghost. That night, I burned the letter. I stood in the backyard, watched the flames lick the paper until nothing remained but ash. Luciana watched from the porch. She didn't ask what it was. She just opened her arms, and I ran into them. Time passed. Therapy helped. So did school. And Daniel, who became my anchor in the storm. Some nights, I still dream of pink rooms and teddy bears with glass eyes. But they don't haunt me anymore. Now, I know who I am. I am Valentina Ortiz. I was taken. I was brainwashed. I was loved by the wrong person, but I was saved by the right ones. 1 year later, on my birthday, Luciana gave me a gift. A new teddy bear. Yellow bow. Soft ears. No cameras. No ghosts. Just love. Real love, sewn into every thread. I named him Hope. And this time, I knew he was truly mine.